Joining us right now is former U.S. Army intelligence officer and NATO senior advisor Andrew Peek. Andrew, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much, Maria.
Let's first talk about the Christians being targeted yesterday on the Easter holiday. What's your takeaway there?
You know, I think the most awful thing about those attacks is that they were intended to send a message to Nawaz Sharif, the conservative Muslim prime minister of Pakistan, who is in no way himself associated with Pakistan's Christian minority, if anything, very much the opposite. And so it really indicates in all parts of the world, regardless of what the U.S. does, that Christians are just an easy and opportune target to blow up when militants want to cause problems.
Why? I mean, you know, and this has nothing to do with what we saw from ISIS. This is a completely separate attack by the Taliban, who's taken responsibility for it.
That's absolutely right. And if anything, it shows how delinked to U.S. policies this is, right? This is a group that is a splinter from the Pakistani Taliban, which has no real quarrel with the United States per se, but instead with the Pakistani government. And is one more offshoot of this radical Islam phenomenon in every part of the Islamic world that seems to be rearing its head.
Dagan, how do you see this? I mean, you have to also question, what is the U.S. doing about this?
Right, given the fact that 2015 was the worst year on record for the persecution of Christians. Beheadings, imprisonment, murder, eviction from their ancestral lands. And it does beg the question, when you hear a John Kerry talk about the United States, it seems like, well, we somehow, because of our political process here, deserve this to be happening to us, that Christians somehow have this coming to them. And I push back on that. Like, there is a role, there's a vacuum that's been created by this administration. How do we fix that?
That's right. You know, I think it's shocking that these Christians are the only religious group that on their major religious holidays expects mass casualty attacks, right? You don't have that for any other religious group on this planet. And the view in the White House that we can't even name the monster that's kind of consuming these communities, right? That when we call genocide, we have to say it's against minorities. I think you start by calling it what it is, right? There is a genocide against Christians going on in the world, particularly in the Middle East, and the U.S. needs to take steps to stop it.
What is going on with this administration that they are just refusing to call situations what they are? Why?
Well, I think the view is they need to keep the cooperation of our allies in the region, and that makes their job harder if they say, well, you know, radical Islam's the problem, radical jihadists are causing a backlash against American policies. I think it doesn't do any good. I think those jihadists and ISIS are going to attack them anyway.
Is this going to get to a situation where we're going to have mutually assured destruction? Because if you look at what's happening with the Saudis and Wahhabism, when you start to see what's happening with ISIS and Turkey and everything that's happening in the entire region, I mean, this is a borderless war where everyone's going after each other. How do you address something like this, and what can this administration do to target that?
Right. Well, you know, the most interesting thing of the past 3 years has been the breaking down of the traditional order in the Middle East, right? And the only effective communities that have managed to defend themselves and not sort of take these mass casualty attacks are groups like the Kurds, who we arm directly and sort of rely on their homogeneity as an ethno-sectarian group to really create some cohesion and protection against radical jihadists. So I think the administration seriously has to look in places where the state is failing at allowing Christians and other minorities to defend themselves directly.
Andrew, what can the intelligence community do differently? Is there any way to try and prevent these attacks, know any of these attacks are coming, or is it just one of those things that you have to react to because there's no way to anticipate it?
Well, so we have a whole galaxy of sort of operational and tactical intelligence tools we can do to break into these cells, and they're doing them in Belgium right now. I think the most damning thing strategically, though, is that we have had interventions for the last 10 years of every shape and size, from Iraq and Afghanistan to Libya to Syria, which is a non-intervention, right, where we didn't do anything at all. And the same result has been true in almost every case, which is nothing has really worked that well. So that is, if I were in the White House, that would really give me pause about my certainty and about the certainty of any of my policies going forward.
I want to get